22nd. Boom, it's live. I'm Narwhal here with Jared Jewell, artist on Hotel Story. We were chatting with you guys last week, was the big launch for Hotel Story. So it's been 1 week now. The campaign's at 10,300, which is very nice first week. And as they do, it actually didn't slow down particularly until basically like yesterday. It did like finally hit that point where it's kind of like settled or whatever, which is I kind of in some ways don't mind that because then I can like because when it's like doing pretty good, that's what I was telling you that I'm clicking refresh like every 10 minutes and it's like kind of unhealthy mental health stuff even, but just being able to like relax, like we now have this it's like a long road ahead of us with not that much work. I mean, Hotel Story 1 is done, but it's going to crowdfund for 4 months. So this is one thing we're going to be drawing and chit chatting, but this is one thing I was going to talk about is like a little bit of like some of our potential plans as our kind of artistic collaboration and partnership, and then individually we both have stuff too. But it's I realized even today that like uh, I think things are finally calming down where like I might have a period of time here where I'm just I can just draw every day or write every day. I don't there's not constantly like weird stuff to do with either fulfilling or preparing a print file, or because for a while there it was like that constantly, and if you're lucky you get a couple weeks from where the print file is finally done and ordered to when the books ship to get to you, then fulfillment begins. Then you have like a 2 week window, and that's what I remember what working on comics was like before the kind of success maelstrom of Comicsgate was like it would just be me every morning waking up and drawing comics for like years, and then the business side. So I like the business side, but it's like ooh, we might have a little period of time of almost like relaxing. But how are you feeling about it, Jared? First, how are you doing in general? Sorry.
Sure. I'm doing all right. And
Nice.
I mean, as far as yeah, I'm glad I finally have like a bigger opportunity to start working on some of the other ideas that I was that were kind of on the back burner as far as like getting some outlines for new scripts going and whatnot.
Yeah, yeah. So for you too, you have a little bit of like time. We discussed this too a little bit, that it was almost like a little crunch to finish it before launch. We got it done, and I was thinking like we might do some little edits before going to print, um, but that'll be like next spring. But honestly, it might be nothing. Like I think I noticed one like page where Salome's eyes might be green. They're actually white. We colored them white, but uh, so like it's on like the page where she pulls in Pizza Guy, I think. Um, so I'm like, well, we'd make those green. I'm like that. It's like a couple things like where for a while, which was interesting too. The project went through the iterative like editorial process. It might have been when you add up all the notes, it was like 200 or something notes, and it's less than 200 pages. So we were like going through together, like you take these 10, I'll take these 10, doing a read through, seeing what comes up, just little things. If it's a typo, if it's like a color key thing, um, a lot of that, just getting it all lined up. Caleb is in the chat. What's up, Caleb? He goes, "What's up? Narwhal is pumped. I bet we got OG Narwhal, not the CIA bot Narwhal." Oh, that's. I think that's whether or not I'm standing. I need to get back to standing. I still have my standing desk, but I just been sitting. I'm sitting right now too, but I could stand one of these days, Caleb. We'll get back to OG. Um, but so the kind of point of this stream is to hang out with Jared a bit, and do some drawing. So we will be taking requests from the chat, and we'll also be kind of brainstorming. Like maybe we can both. Jimmy Ray's, what's up, man? Maybe we can both do some fan art, either possibly within Comicsgate, but possibly outside of Comicsgate, um, to like reach a new audience. And that's always like a long shot, but it's always kind of fun, especially to even like think about it. Like we discussed this just a little bit, and I was like, um, Pizza Tower, Pepino, that guy where they draw the pizza owner guy like Ren and Stimpy or whatever. Like, and you're like, well, that's not exactly in the consciousness anymore. And I'm like, that's true. It was getting tweeted out like every day, and they would get thousands. So timing is an issue with it. So that's another thing with the chat I want to ask. It says 9 people watching. I bet 4 of them are bots. So we got 5 legit people who are great people. The bots are okay as well. Bots are just okay. At least they aren't spamming or anything. A bot that doesn't spam is like okay in my book. But let us know if you guys what you think like the pulse is for like fan art. Like what are people drawing and coming out with? I mentioned Ada Wong from Resident Evil 4 Separate Ways just came out. So that's I'm gonna start with that. I'm gonna draw her. I might try and do it a little bit fast. This is another thing, like I always draw fast, and I'm like, if I would just take my time, it has that sometimes has a better chance too of it going viral or whatever. So we'll see how that goes. Cool team, what's up? And me and Jared in the past we've collaborated in multiple ways, multiple like workflows, and so we might experiment with that. Like I could throw something to you, Jared, to color, or vice versa. We could swap and color each other's stuff after the line art. Um, what do you think, Jared? Do you have anything off the top of your head you might want to draw?
Um, there might be a couple of things that I can think of. I guess like for the I know as far as like a long term thing, like the longest time I've wanted to do some kind of fan art for the game Sin and Punishment, and
Mm.
I just haven't really come up with any like when I don't really do a ton of fan art. The like if I like because I see like some of the fan art I see that's it has like a really um or no uh like some of the best fan art I've seen is fan art that isn't necessarily the like a basic uh just pose in front of either a blank background or like a really like a very like a very staged, a very posed image. Like a lot of like some of the best I've seen is where it has like a little bit of an element of like it go like it extends a little bit of the story or a little bit of some of the lore of the story
Oh,
going on a little bit. Like
you know
it
what's
doesn't
funny?
much, or go ahead.
Or just as you were saying that, I was like, "Ooh!" I was just about to draw Ada, just like posed, and then I kind of I picked up what you're putting down. It's like they'll add a little dialogue, or it'll be a little not necessarily a deleted scene, but if it's like Ada putting her sweater on because she has a very iconic sweater, so you could draw her putting her sweater on and saying something or something like that is like way more of a chance than like just posing badass. Um,
Right, right.
yeah. So
And I
you were
guess
thinking that, or continue? Sorry.
right. And I mean that's just me kind of going on a tangent. Um like I don't think that should that shouldn't stop like if that like if that's if that's the angle because
Oh yeah.
I don't because I don't dislike fan art like simple fan art either, you know, like because I think even like really simple fan art can like if it like I guess like if it comes from the heart, you know what I mean, like if it comes like
Yeah, yeah. Well, actually, the other thing about that is you're right. And then I've thought in the past, I'm like, shit, I immediately know it doesn't come from the heart. Like even Ada Wong, I love her, but I don't love her that much. And so it is like this is a heartless attempt to get promotion for Hotel Story.
right. I
And
mean
then
you
that
but
makes me laugh. But
right. But at the same time, like you do like I know you talk about the Resident Evil games a lot, and like even just like from the IP from that IP, like I know that there's a lot of there is a lot of love coming from that, and even you know um, it doesn't even like just coming from there, like I like it. I don't know. Anyway, like and that's not to stop anyone from doing like like fan art, like whatever, like whatever like, whatever their heart is into, or whatever their like
yeah,
what I feel like if it if it's something like if it's something that if it's something that you want to draw, then for
Yeah, just to put the time in alone is like a little bit of love or
Yeah,
whatever. But yeah, like for example, you drawing Sin and Punishment, that's like something near and dear to your heart. It's a little more niche. I actually think that might be successful because Sin and Punishment does have a following, and if you tweet it out, it would find its audience, and people would retweet it and enjoy it.
right.
Whereas if you drew like Pepino or Ada Wong, that might be even that's on that spectrum of more soulless. But the soulless stuff still kind of makes me laugh a little bit. But
Right. I mean, I guess like the thing is like I wanted like I've been afraid like I haven't drawn the Sin and Punishment stuff for like even though I've had the want to draw it, like I feel like I'm gonna do a kind of do a disservice to it. But at the same time, it's like that's kind of just like a mental blockade that some people put themselves through. So I might as well either I can attempt to draw that now or like another like I mentioned this before. I mentioned this to you in private too, but like I've also thought about doing uh, fan art for it's one of the characters from Terror in the Trenches. Uh,
oh,
because
the sniper girl.
but yeah, I think that's what I'll start with is the Sin and Punishment, and then if there's any suggestions from chat or from you or anything that I can go off of. I can go off of that.
Cool. Squibs says Robo Squibs. I don't know what that is. Is that a famous thing that's in the thing right now? Squibs. Cool Teen says FF7. FF7. I think it did get re-released. So like the new what or like the part two is about to come out or it already came out. So that's kind of in there. Kelly Clarkson distracting you from the fridge as she raids it. Some Kelly Clarkson lore from the heart. um, what's up, L.E. Munez? Cool. So I might have Ada checking her belly fat is what I'm doing right now. This is like it. What do you call this? It's very wide audience. It's very relatable, I guess. So I'll throw up Jared's screen
I don't have it.
randomly. Yeah. I mean, in like 10 minutes or whatever. We'll check in with that. I'm doing mine right now. I think I do want to get some Ada reference, which there's kind of a ton, I think. Uh, L.E. Munez says, just finished M. Night Shyamalan's Knock at the Cabin. I actually enjoyed it. It had woke elements, but performances really elevated it. Cool. I'd be down to check that out. Past Master. I'm obtuse and hard to fathom. Yeah, and as we're drawing, if anyone hasn't backed and you feel like backing today, go ahead and do it. We're at 10,300. We're now we know that goal is to 11,000. Then 20,000 is the first stretch goal, which everyone gets. All backers included would get the little handout they give to the hotel when they check you in. They give you the card with the internet passcode written on it. So you get the internet passcode basically, which is just some fun lore. Everyone gets that at 20,000. And then the other thing I was kind of thinking is depending on like my whatever my mindset or whatever, it's like, shit, why can't this book should be 100,000. I'm like, we're like begging for 20,000. It's like, no, 100,000. Let's go for 100,000. But even though that is, I guess, unrealistic, it's still, well, part of that was Zorro, seeing Zorro. I mean, it did so good, which is great, and it's doing good. Um, but yeah, then I'm like, oh, it's doing so good. There are people out there who like comics, and I'm like, oh, back Zorro, back Hotel Story 2, everyone. If you like, everyone, I was thinking to get to 100,000. This is a thing I've talked a little bit about with the, um, it's kind of like the economy thing. Is like, I bet you we're on a lot of people's radars, but we might be like top 10, top 5 sometimes even of books they want to back, but they can only back like one or two because of the economy. So we're just not on that. And then if the economy got better, people's books they back got up to 5, all of a sudden we'd be on a lot more lists of it getting back. So we're still kind of like in that scenario, but that is interesting to think of it that way. I'm like, it's kind of cool. It's like, well, there's probably there's probably 500 people that are aware of Hotel Story that are considering whether or not to pull the trigger, and then we can kind of reach them and we can kind of convince them with sales, like of being like, here's why. A big one is like that helps is if people have read one of my books before. A lot of times those people, and it fulfills fast and they enjoy the book, then they're like, yeah, I'll get on for another narwhal. But and there are hundreds of those adding up over the years. And then some of them I noticed they don't know about, aren't in the circles to even, like, if I do a campaign update, it goes to their spam or whatever, because they'll hit me up later and they'll be like, I didn't know you had a new book out. And I'm like, yeah, it is a problem sometimes getting the word out. And I mean, we're actually doing a good job. A lot of people have seen it. I think you can check the stats on the views on the page, and I forget where we're at, but for a while too, we were at 10% for views to backing, which I don't know, but if that feels like maybe that's average, but it also feels kind of good to me. I'm like, I think that feels like a good number. But 17 people watching, people floating in. So just quick catching up. If you're just getting here, me and Jared are doing a draw stream, just hanging out, drawing some fan art with the idea of we're just going to kind of post it and kind of try and build our audiences to then promote Hotel Story. So this is a little bit just an attempt specifically at fan art. I'm going to do Ada Wong. He's doing Sin and Punishment, which is a little more niche, fun shooter game. There's a version of it for the Nintendo 64 and the Wii. Later on, it got remade, I think. But it's pretty cool. That game also is made by Treasure, which we didn't discuss yet, but they're like a famous game designer from Japan, and they're badass. Every game they make is kind of legendary. And like a cult, they make cult games. You could say the games have a big following. Ada Wong, Separate Ways, RE4 remake. I'm having trouble just finding the right screen caps. Here we go. This is a little closer. File. Paste. That might be all I need for now. See if there's anything else. Here's Jared's so far. Looking good. One random thing, we can talk a little bit about like some of our projects and stuff, because one of them is we have a potential I don't know if you'd call it a spiritual sequel. It's not exactly a spiritual sequel to Hotel Story, but we've been brainstorming the next script that we might co-write together, and then whether or not that becomes a comic or not. Like it probably would be a comic, I think, but it might be an animation because we've been talking a lot about animation and trying to get more and more into that. Um, but that one is like kind of loosely inspired by the skate video games from Dreamcast. Uh, what's it
Jet
called, Jared?
Radio.
Yeah, Jet Set Radio. And I kind of say very loosely because that was even a starting point, and then we kind of have gone a little bit away from it more and more. It's also kind of becoming a little bit more influenced by like anime OVAs from the 90s. I was just looking at a bunch of those yesterday, and I've seen a bunch of them. So because sometimes I'm like, I want to rewatch it, but I'm like, I kind of remember it, so I don't want to rewatch it. But a lot of them are fun. They're interesting because a lot of them are like 40 minutes long, so they're just a very interesting length. They're not a 20-minute TV show. They're not a 2-hour movie. And 40 might be that's like without commercials a 1-hour TV show, but they'll be like 50 minutes, 54 minutes. So they're these weird lengths. They're just whatever they need to be, and a lot of them are quicker than a movie. And when they say OVA, it's like back in the day they'd get imported from Japan and you'd buy them on VHS was like the market, and so you would just watch the VHS. So it would like wasn't. I remember some of those that weren't like manga, but the ones that I got into, there was like a Mortal Kombat one that I watched it like 100 times, but it just had like, I think it had like a little making of section of Mortal Kombat and then like maybe a 20-minute animation or something. It was like, and the animation was cool, but it was like very cash grabby because a lot of people were like, oh, VHS, like we go get something in the market, get something out there. Red Letter Media kind of makes fun of that. That's they watch a ton of those kind of crappy old VHS things. Yeah, what is it? It's Jet Set Radio. Maybe some animation. One thing that we've chatted about a little bit too is because we have worked together a lot now and have like kind of multiple workflows that seem to work well of collaboration. And I've noticed because Jared's like a jack of all trades kind of, and then I'm a little bit like that too. So the two of us combined, it works well for like a faux company. Like we can basically function as a company, but it's just two people. But what's interesting, this is like basic to say, but two people is double one person. So three people is not double two people. Like if we added one more person, it wouldn't like boost your efficiency so much that you're like, oh shit, it's like almost like we just made a company out of nothing. But if it's all of a sudden it goes from one person to two people. So with that in mind, it's like we do have this kind of like a lot of projects on the backlog of what we might want to work on. And it's animation, another comic, Hotel Story Part 2, maybe eventually a video game. If we have time later, I'll show you guys. And I might have played it on a stream before, but I forgot if I've shown you, Jared, but I have a quick mock-up of a video game I wanted to make because I was thinking yesterday I was house sitting for my parents and I didn't bring my drawing thing. So that day I just had my actual drawing pad and I was using that and I was thumbnailing the rest of Grand Prix Part 2 and I got it all the way through and it felt good. I was like pretty stoked about it. So I want to jump into that, and I have 23 more pages to do and then that's done getting drawn. So that's like further along than you might think too. It might be done easily before Christmas. and then I might launch that maybe while Hotel Story is still live. Um, but yeah. Let me see. Caleb says Mortal Kombat. Squib says like short films. Yeah, but even like short films, I feel like would be like 20 minutes. Like 50 minutes is such an interesting length. And they're a lot of fun. But they have a certain energy to them. So this is the OVAs. I don't know what the deal is. I've heard some people describe as like a lot of times I think they were made kind of sort of like a pilot, and so they're trying to get it to be a TV show. And if it's successful, then they would get more. But it's only based on the success. So it's a lot of the um, survival of the fittest, which like manga is like that too, which does breed pretty awesome stuff. And a lot of times it makes it a little bit more ADD because they're just trying to pack shit in. So it's like 50 minutes, that's the budget. And then they might try and pack a movie length shit into the budget, into the 50 minutes or whatever. Like, so it's interesting what they cut, what they show, what they choose to show with the 50 minutes, because that's all their money. And they know it has to be good to even justify like the fact that it might have a sequel one day or whatever. I kind of got sidetracked though. I forget what I was talking about. I'm gonna, with this Ada Wong pose. Try and think of it in 3D. I'm gonna throw up my screen for a little bit while I draw this. And I do over exaggerate arms, and for this, because I want it to be a little more realistic, I might not do that. She's got little dinky arms, but it's a little more realistic. Some of that, it can be bigger if it's like the perspective. Like if the camera's closer to the arm, it can make it bigger. And I'm also kind of trying to just do it simple. All right, what's old Leda look like? Looks like that. And then she's got straps. And the gun straps go right under the boop. The other thing I might try and look at is anatomy, because actually, if you get the belly anatomy just right, it can look cool. And I don't really remember what the perfect. I just wing it all the time, but. And she's got black tights and then black boots. And another thing hanging, that would be on the counter next to her, is like her other strap. Maybe it's too like SJWE a little bit to have her examining her belly fat, even though I'm like, that would be sort of what would get retweeted. But I'm like, maybe she'll be examining a wound or a little disease thing or something. $22 people watching. So we're doing a draw stream. Let us know. We're all trying to brainstorm what is the pulse of like Twitter, etc., out there for fan art of something you could draw fan art of that has a good chance of going viral, and we're going to try and expand our audience that way. We'll draw fan art of it. I'm going to try and be a little bit faster here drawing Ada, and I got to run and get more coffee. But I was talking a little bit about future projects. Oh, so I was going to say, um, we were thinking about doing Naked Samurai, me and Jared maybe, and and just seeing. Because I have that script, and it's like, yeah, the two of us, we can maybe bust it out. There's a few others too. I think I have three, or there's a script from Brendan Swan that Millennium's drawing right now, but it I might pivot slightly and have her on a smaller project, and then I might draw that one because I just really like the script, and I'm just thinking about what to even do. But Millennium's been great, and definitely going to continue to work with her. If it is a girl, I'm not sure actually, um but yeah, so freaking the Brendan Swan script, it's 80 pages. That's a part one. It's full on manga, so I would actually draw that. If I drew it, I drew it manga style. um but that's one. Some of these I'm like, oh, we can maybe get. I like the idea of trying to get stuff out fast too, and I always conceptualize it sometimes as a little bit of like a crunch, like 80 pages. I could crunch that in a month almost, but it's like not. It never works out that way. But you're like, shit, 1 month of not doing nothing but drawing, and then they would be done, and I could release it, make some money, and move on to the next thing or whatever. But yeah, that script from Brendan turned out really good. There's this is another random kind of funny thing, but so there is a path that creative people go through sometimes where they uh, like a lot of the filmmakers I like do this, except for Quentin Tarantino. But like Steven Spielberg, Stanley Kubrick, it's like their early movies. They wrote a lot of their early movies, and or it might be adapted if it's based on something. They'll write the adaptation. I think Kubrick still did that his whole career, but at a certain point, a lot of times they start working with other writers and adapting other stuff outside their own stuff that they're thinking up on their own. And I kind of do like that. For me, I like both, but I really like the idea of just working with other people. And and it's part of it's like it's fun because it becomes a game of trying to spot like the real dope shit, where it's you're using your imagination. Like anyone can spot like the next great comic or whatever, because then it's done. You see it and you're like, that's amazing. But spotting the next great comic script is a little bit harder because you kind of have to visualize it or whatever. And in Comicsgate there are a ton of writers, and they're all pretty great, you know. Like one of the scripts that I have done, and I've been collaborating with writers, a lot of them, almost a bunch of the writers in Comicsgate, if you name them, I've collaborated with them. I was just thinking the only one of the higher profile ones that I haven't collaborated with yet is Phil Diaz, which I'm totally 100% opening to do that sooner or later. But I collaborated with Mike Murphy, and from that process we got the script for Eclipse, which is a 100-page script, and that's like one of my favorite scripts that I have. But I think I want Monica to draw it because it could just be so blockbuster, and that one's fun too because it wraps up in 100 pages. It's a little bit more like an OVA. It's not movie length. It's like 1 hour length. And but with that script, I'm trying to remember, but I'm pretty sure Mike Murphy came up with pretty much all the concepts of how cool like the story is, and then I wrote it. But it kind of we did some back and forth with the outline, but it ended up being my full draft that I ended up going with. And so it's an interesting 50-50 mix where I think he did a couple outlines, full outlines that are almost functioning as scripts, but there's no dialogue, but it's like page breakdowns. He did a couple of those. It started early too. We actually abandoned it because it kind of dead ended, and then we picked it up again a year later, and then it evolved into based off. He was the one who had like the main idea that got everything going, and so that collaboration was super successful and fun and fruitful. Um, and I'm like really happy with how that script turned out. So that's like the 100-page script. I'm like, oh, I want that to be released, but I just can't yet because yeah, for now I'm still trying to conceptualize it as Monica to be the one to draw that. But there's that. There's the Brendan Swan script, and then there's some unwritten stuff like some stuff that me and Jared might work on, or the skate thing or whatever. Um,
What the fuck's going on with this leg?
I'm gonna throw up your screen, Jared. Oh, yeah, that's dope.
Thanks.
Simply Green. There's a lot of phenomenal works that go unknown and forgotten. How to capture the imagination of a large group. How many saw Edge of Tomorrow versus Red? All you need is kill. I will argue to my deathbed the latter is superior. You like reading the manga, you mean? Yeah. Great as a matter of perspective. Popular and profitable. Doesn't always meet. Ken Jackman, did you make something with EVS? I mean, if you count the Cyberfrog Trump cover, I helped with that. I was the first guy to do the mock-up or get the file together, get everything. Because that was mostly like a graphic design job almost. But 1 second, my phone's weird. 1 second here. I'm back. Okay, which one of you is calling? That was me. Cyberpunk Trump cover's awesome. I'm getting one. Yeah. Yeah, I think I might be credited just maybe like on the inside cover or something for helping with the design. ear does really pop out. One of the things in general that we're all brainstorming a little bit is how do you expand your audience? How do we get like 100,000 readers instead of 1,000, 2,000? You know, Eric July got 40,000, which is amazing. But how do you get 100,000? You know, I think part of it is it's a little bit of like a cultural thing. Like comics have to get cool again, and even then, I don't know if exactly how it would happen. Um, but even if you're just pursuing that goal, it's like there are things that you would do. Like you would try and reach out to other internet fandoms. That's a little bit what we're doing here. Other mediums, and the mediums working a little bit more in sync. Like Marvel dropped the ball basically when they did Avengers, but you know Iron Man, Captain America, they weren't available to buy his comics at the time. So that would be like something that if we ever do like a video game or something, maybe having a comic go with it. Yeah, Ada Wong's got a turtleneck. Turtlenecks are sweet. Clip. Gonna throw up my Ada here. All right, here's a kind of interesting thing is I got to draw her hand in a specific pose. It's this pose, like, so it's like kind of hard and weird. Yeah. more about the gesture than the anatomy too. That gesture looks correct, so I hate to stick with that. Then, yeah, that's probably okay. And this one, kind of sucking. Yeah, her arms are still a little long there, but what is the story of Sin and Punishment? Do you know? Or...
Uh, I think the best way to describe the Sin and Punishment story is like if you threw everything at a wall,
That's
see what sticks.
kind of a treasure kind of thing. They're a little bit like that.
Yeah. I mean, I guess like the bait, like I don't think it's really mentioned in the game itself, but like some of the stories, like some of the lore behind it is that like it's in the future where they bioengineer some sort of creature that they can use to help solve the food crisis. But eventually, the creatures that they made, like like they're they're they they reproduce too rapidly, so now there's an overabundance of them, and then they've eventually evolved to become a big nuisance. And then I think, uh, and then beyond that, like the story starts to become a bit indescribable without like I don't know without like I
Without,
guess like if you're like focusing in on like the first game, then you start out with these like it's like a three it's a group of like three revolutionaries that um their whole unit or whatever got wiped out, and they're trying to sort of they're trying to fight back the infestation and like fight off uh whatever
yeah,
like I said, the story is a bit of a mess, but the gameplay itself is like is the whole point anyway. Especially because it's kind of a late N64 game. Like it almost has some like it almost feels like a PS. It almost feels like a high quality PS2 or PS1 game to some degree. Like as far as like what it does with textures and stuff, and the soundtrack itself is interesting too, where it's like the audio that they use for that game. It's all like it's all Red Book audio. It's all streamed. Like it's not like it's not reading any sort of MIDI or using like like a sequencer any kind. That's like
Oh,
it's all streamed. Like, and I don't know how I don't know how they did it, but um, you know,
that's cool.
yeah, it like it sounds really compressed, but you're getting like 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 some cool stuff with it.
Like better, way better than MIDI.
That's arguable, but
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, because MIDI's cool, but I don't know. It has limitations or whatever. I can think usually if I picture it, that's I picture like doom music, or whatever.
right. And I use MIDI loosely just because like MIDI itself is a like it's a protocol. It's not like it doesn't necessarily produce music. It like it's used to tell like different instruments what to do. Like it tells the parameters of a synthesizer. It tells it what sound to play, how loud to play it, um, whatever whatever things that would need to like whatever things that would need to adjust. But as far as like sound itself, it doesn't produce it. Like a lot of like because you like I think you've gone down like some of the like the MIDI. You've talked like you know how with like especially with like Doom and like a lot of old game systems, like they don't like some people have like a dedicated sound card or like a sound canvas module they that they play like old video game music with, and like those sound like drastically different to like some than someone who's playing it directly from their playing the same game with audio with like a lot of like most computers have like a built-in uh, wavetable synthesizer kind of deal that they have set up. It's supposed to emulate the sound canvas or the I forget like there's like a sound module that came out before that, but I can't remember the name of. But it tries to emulate that sound, but it's not really that close. But that's kind of what people will associate with the MIDI sound, per like quote unquote.
Oh, okay, so it could be a lot of different stuff, but it tends to have this one thing
Right,
that people associate.
right.
Um,
And
did
then
I?
go ahead.
I was gonna just say this is almost changing the subject, but have you seen? And I might have asked you, but have you seen Amadeus? And chat if you guys have seen that too.
I still haven't seen Amadeus yet. Um, I like I've seen I like in one of my old like in one of my like film classes they had shown like a couple of clips like a few clips of it mainly from like the kind of some of the cuts that go between the carriage and the shots uh where where Mozart is frantically trying to finish the Requiem.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's cool, and it's like very music based, but very it's about art and stuff. I think you'd like it. It's a cool '80s movie. I was trying to think of um, like Tarantino says that the '80s are one of the worst decades of movies, and I know a lot of people in Comicsgate and me myself included it's kind of our favorite decade. The most of our favorite movies are from there. But I've been switching because Tarantino says '70s are better. I've been getting more and more what he means, and it's funny. It's as movies are sucking more and more. I'm having to look backwards to find stuff to watch, and you even in the '80s, it's not always a sure bet, but in the '70s, it's almost like a sure bet. Like you just throw anything on and watch it, and it might be at this point like down the memory hole, something that's pretty forgotten, and it's like pretty great. But where the '80s, the best of the '80s, is like amazing and it's a lot of people's favorites, but it just wasn't hitting on like the '70s, where I think is kind of what that. But Amadeus is like a very famous '80s movie, and there's a lot of cool aspects of it that feel like '80s ish, even though it's a period piece. Um, and so that's kind of cool. The actor who plays the dude, I've only seen him in like one. This, I'm trying to draw this gun and I'm like messing it up. With guns, I draw them like 10. I don't know, like 10 times. Then you end up. It's like drawing a person. You end up caricaturing it, and then it looks good all of a sudden. But,
Yeah, my the character I'm drawing also has a gun, but it's like a weird sci-fi gun that's also a sword at the bottom. So it's like a really weird thing that I'm struggling with.
yeah, yeah. It's like trying to get even like the barrel has to feel straight. If you get all that, then it like that's why some people will use like 3D um, guides or whatever and just trace it. That's when it's okay to trace for this that kind of heavily researched stuff. Another one that's a little bit like that is drawing spaceships. I don't know the last time you tried to draw a spaceship, but if you're trying to design it, because I was messing with that last night too, just in the notebook, and I was drawing spaceships, and I'm like, it looks like too much like a penis. I crossed it out. Draw it again. Looks too much like a penis. I'm like, damn, why do all spaceships like it looks bad and then you get it looking like quote unquote good. You're like, oh, that looks pretty good. You're like, damn, it's another penis. Like all the good spaceships look like penises. So that's like spaceship design is you got to get a spaceship that doesn't look like a penis that still looks dope, and then you got yourself a good spaceship design.
Maybe if you start out with drawing the spaceship to look very closely, like to have it look start off with the spaceship looking as close to a penis as possible in excruciating detail, and then it'll um, as you start drawing in the details like that, like the resemblance starts to starts to get drawn back to where it looks like a I don't know, something more
Yeah,
like an ancient monolith or something.
yeah, like working backwards instead of forwards, knowing
Yeah.
your extremes. Yeah, that's not a bad idea. You know what I ended up kind of settling on that, but I still have some work to do because this is speaking of this is another like back burner, something I want to do. I always filter it through the possibility of you and me doing it too, like more and more. And this depends on obviously a little bit how good Hotel Story does, but me and Jared, like we'll just like keep things rolling and it'll be like its own imprint almost, I imagine, is like our collaborations. And um but basically it's like just Hotel Story, and then maybe like another one, but then we're doing our other stuff too, but on the side, our independent projects. But yeah, this is sorry, a tangent, but your independent projects have been getting super awesome. I'm excited for those. I know some of it's like under wraps, but Obel kind of counts like that. And so I'm looking forward to the next thing you do that is like your solo project kind of thing. I would still publish it if you wanted, or I don't. You might not need me though, but we could do something like that. But
Right. I mean, we'll we'll see how it gets around, like with the like on the current campaign. And, if it gets a lot of good word of mouth, then well, hopefully it'll go.
yeah, Vasin Kasi says calling our collaboration company Narjar. I actually kind of like that. It reminds me of Jarhead, Narjar. Uh, yeah, your boy Zach and Narwhal's Narzak. Yeah, and I think I got a new project brewing with. Zach, so that's fun. So I'm staying busy. Got a lot to do. There was a moment there where I was like, "What is the future? Like, do I need to like apply for some storyboarding gigs or something?" Like, crowdfunding's across the board is taking a down tick. On top of it, there's like kind of annoying drama, I guess, which even talking about it is like possibly annoying or whatever. But that it makes me wonder about the future of the whole situation. And I was like, damn, maybe I'm gonna have to go back to work at the deli. I'm like, I'll never go back to the deli. I'm like, I can maybe pull out enough favors to either scrape by just doing work for people in the community for a while, or maybe yeah, like maybe get in somehow with some storyboarding gigs and kind of just um, be going okay that way. But so that was like a little bit of I don't know if you'd call it like it's a introspective what your boy Zach had a term for it, uh, like but like a night where you're like thinking about the future kind of and and then you kind of snap out of it. But what snapped me out of it was just remembering that doing the layouts for Earthbound Part Two kind of pumped me up because I'm like, man, this comic can be sweet and it's almost done. And then I'm like, okay, I got these projects that I want to get done. And they kind of, it's like the fulfilling aspect of just making comics that you're proud of is like that goes that pretty much gets the entire job done for like life fulfillment. That like you can still have little things that you're like, ah, I wish I had a hot girlfriend or something like that. But it's like, no, um, making comics that I'm proud of is like that's the base level that is like very satisfying. But and then you're like, shit, if something happened where that wasn't exactly happening, then you'd have a problem. But like, and that could be like, yeah, if you're losing the audience more and more for whatever reason, if it's just not there, let's until the point where you can't make a living on it, or yeah, people aren't seeing it or aren't buying it, aren't responding the way you would like the way you think of it. Like you could be wrong about something if you think something's good, and because some stuff can be more niche, less niche. And I even think about that with Hotel Story. I'm like, it's awesome that it knows exactly what it is, and we can kind of pitch it. We can tell everyone like this is a gory, fun horror romp, and then people know exactly what it is. They're going to get that, and then they're going to be like, yeah, it was, and it was great. It was a great gory, fun horror romp. But I'm like, not everyone wants to buy a gory, fun horror romp. That's the other thing. But so that's a weird thing about sales. They say is one of the first questions you ask is you ask the person to qualify themselves if you should even sell to them. So like it's from that the kind of famous question from Wolf of Wall Street when the guy's like, "Sell me this pen," and the first thing because it actually don't show it in the movie, but how that actually goes is the first thing you ask is, "Do you need a pen? Do you need to write something and you can't write?" Like that's your question, and if they say yes, then you're like, "Well, I got just what you need." And then you're in business, you know. But if they don't need to write anything or they already have a pen, you almost don't sell to them because they're not going to need it. Um, Simply Green. I think trying to appeal to everyone is a mistake. But I'm curious, like what's broader, what's smaller. I agree with you too, Simply Green. Um, what's up, guy in his room? Uh, you and Rini are great at avoiding the drama. Thanks. Yeah, yeah. I think so. Knock on wood. But and some of it's like ignoring it or whatever, just not responding if anything does come up. Nar job and the narwhal nudge are both sex moves. uh, the nudge. It's just called the nudge now. But then it changed to the nuge. The nuge. It's a wrestling move, but it's a wrestling move in which you come on my channel and I get someone to buy your comic. Hey, this is cool. You got some flats getting in there.
Yeah, I'm still getting that. Um, I guess like uh, as far as like, what do you think? Should I go ahead and like move on to like a flatting coloring stage for this, or do you think I'm about like 50 on this drawing. I could do a coloring pass edit, or I could just move on to a new prompt. That's kind of your opinion and then
Uh,
possibly chat's opinion.
yeah. Let chat know. Should Jared move on to a new prompt or clean this up a little, just a little bit? I do like it though. I like the perspective and the character. It is funny though. It's like I can't recognize it as sin and punishment, so I'm
Right.
not in
Yeah.
the
Because
audience.
right. Yeah. Because yeah, it is.
Because you always see the dude from behind. That's one thing. You
Right.
only ever see sin and punishment guy from behind in the video game.
Right. And he's usually and like he's like super low poly, so it's like you're looking at like a bunch of what like a bunch of like pretty much a bunch of pyramids and stuff. And like it switches to like uh two different characters like halfway through the game. Not, I mean, yeah, kind of halfway through the game.
Yeah. Um. Cool. I'm gonna do chat. Give us a little feedback. 26 people watching. I think maybe because we can clean it up later, but let's move on to a new one.
Sure.
Does chat have some? They early on they said FF7, which honestly is fun. Chrono Trigger's a lot of fun. You've been into F Zero. F Zero's fun. Um, so anything like that, if you want to do it, those are those some possibilities. I was gonna say maybe there's something like I don't know. Sometimes it's better to just. Uh, but Simply Green says, I was kind of surprised. Seems CG has a slight preference for sci-fi. Usually fantasy is more popular. Yeah, I think I maybe agree with that too. Um, yeah, sci-fi is interesting. That reminds me though. So I was saying about my spaceship design. I think someone must have done this, but my design ended up being um, like a more of a tugboat kind of situation where it's actually like two ships, and the one ship is just like a giant cargo kind of thing, and then it has cables off, and I think there's one for the brake and one for the accelerator. So there's two ships attached via like cables or something. So I'm still designing it, but it looks super weird. Then it just looks so weird that it doesn't even look like anything, and that's kind of a negative because it doesn't really look badass. But I've been trying to think. This is one of the projects I want to do is like a sci-fi, pretty simple one but it could be long story, but it would be a simple story, and it would be like the plot would be disaster style, aka like man versus nature, but and it might be like the AI, nostalgic evil AI, so like not modern AI where it's all weird and lying to us or whatever information that kind of stuff. It's more just like AI controls the ship, it closes the door to cut you in half as you walk through it. But then I wrote down, I was like, in space, there's like three ways you can die, and they're all fun. And you can make a whole story just around that. So the first way you can die is oxygen. You could suffocate. The second way you could die is being too cold, temperature from outer space. That's the second way. The third way you could die is and with temperature is like flammable, like if there's oxygen it could be flammable, that's explosive, so flames, explosions, temperature, pressure, even like they could use water to like house the oxygen maybe, so there would be like oxygen and hydrogen and water, and there could be a scene of like the water housing gets sabotaged, so that part of the ship starts to flood even in outer space. Like a flood in outer space would be cool. And then mixing it with temperature, so like you could have the story be where like the water where they store the oxygen as water, and then that gets the AI is trying to kill everyone, so it floods, and then that breaches the hull, so it becomes immediately frozen from the how cold space is. And then so you can't get through because it's just like ice. So then like they have to go to the cargo bay and get the flamethrower or create a bomb or something to blow through the ice because there's like an ice wall blocking them from getting to the safe part of the ship. So like shit like that. Like you could actually do like, it's not that hard. You could do like 20 of those, and that's your story. And the story could be like kind of long, like 200 pages of just people trying to survive from an AI on a ship, and it's all just oxygen, temperature, pressure, and there. I swear there was one other. I wonder if I wrote it down. Let me see the ways an AI can kill you. Um, and you know what's funny? Like that is what 2001: A Space Odyssey is like. That like straight up, and it's a lot of fun. It's a classic, but
So I think I will do one something from the Final Fantasy VII prompt.
nice.
I decided I'm gonna do something with Sid Highwind. I don't know if anyone was expecting like, or I didn't know if anyone had like like any any particular choice, but I'm going with Sid for now.
Okay, cool. I was gonna draw her on this strip. 801. Sid. Nice. That looks like him.
Thanks.
I can spot him. I think Sid might have been someone they were saying, where is he? They haven't spotted him yet in the new games.
Yeah, yeah. He's right here.
Yeah, yeah. Here he is. Zed. Wait, Zed might have said something earlier. Years ago, I read an old sci-fi paperback that I wish I could recall the name. Crew of a deep space exploration ship begins suffering emergencies. At a rate they can't sustain, they decide to invent AI. Basically, they don't have the manpower to handle everything and need a thinking computer, but realize they're being pushed into that option and become suspicious of using the AI. That's cool. That's a little bit what Hal does to the people in 2001. He lies to them, and then he gets caught in a lie. And that's like, it's kind of funny. It's kind of simple. It's only like 3 plot points, and it spends like 40 minutes doing the 3 plot points. But I rewatched that movie kind of recently, and I love it. I think Kubrick is definitely, he might be my favorite of like everyone. Like I like Tarantino, I like Spielberg, I like Kubrick, Hitchcock, Brian De Palma, some others, but I like Kubrick a lot. And yeah, what was I going to say though? He does some awesome shit with sound design too. It kind of feels like pretty epic at the time. Pretty like, it's like just super intense. I don't know. Like there's whole sequences where all you can hear is the breathing in the helmet. A lot of it based on Earth flora and fauna, but you can get creative. Space is only a belief without evidence. Same with globe Earth, no evidence to prove when they're there from you can't see any conjecture 4 miles up. I don't disagree. Oh, curvature. I really like FEA humanity stories, flipping the script on humans being weak in the universe. And one, an abductee stuck in alien bureaucracy stops a terrorist. Nice. Zombie boy, woo! What's up, zombie boy? What's up? Ada Wong Wong. Oh, Jared, we've sort of brainstormed a little bit together. We were thinking of what to do for maybe an animation, and Jared was like, maybe an F-Zero animation. Speaking of like fan art, F-Zero that's one that is in the consciousness right now because of F-Zero 99. And then we're like, well, like a racing one, but it's hard to think of like what to do for a racing story that's like to even do, or like especially for a short or whatever. And I told him I did have a old idea where a lot of it is around the technology of racers to survive super high G-force turns, but I actually hadn't figured it out anything beyond that. And then Jared's like, "There's some lore that Star Fox. That's what the robot legs are for. So the blood, there isn't enough blood to rush to your head to kill you, because half your body is robotic. And that's kind of funny. That's like a fan theory for why Star Fox, but it's all based on some G-force stuff. But so Jared, I did think of a little bit more of that about the G-force survival thing.
Hmm.
And so what it should be is, I was calling it ghosting, which is, I feel like that could get used, or it's been overused almost, that term, but it would be like your body's able to become corporal. I think that's a term too, right? Like where you're like a ghost or whatever. So your
Right.
body's able to, but only for like split seconds. So and then in this future racing, um, they would actually take corners at right angles, like straight up. So when at the moment that you hit the right angle, it would be, more like a video game like Tron or whatever. If you're a human doing that, hitting that right angle, it's actually the equivalent G force is like crashing into a brick wall or more almost, because then you're also accelerating in the other direction at the same time. Um, so it would immediately kill any human, but that turn happens in a split second, and there would be a technology available to ghost the pilot for that split second period of time. And so that would be like the form of racing, but you would only have, so then beyond that, I'm still kind of figuring it out. But I was thinking it might be like either another being that kind of interfaces that helps you do it, or technology kind of thing or something. But it's like you can't do, you can only do it for like 1 second uh, total, basically. But over the course of a race, the 1 second gets used up on like six different turns, and and then that's it, and then you're good to go, and then you don't die. But if you overuse it, then your co-pilot that's interfacing to make it possible, then it becomes in danger of like dying or like fading out or something. And and that might be a little bit of the story, is like one pilot, it's a race, and someone wants to win so bad that they do kill their co-pilot. uh like it'd be like it could be almost like a cute animal, or something.
Hmm.
So they're like the bad guy, and they win, but they're like at any cost and blah blah blah. But then the other big part of the story is, this is like a classic thing, and we do this in Hotel Story, but it's where you introduce the rule. So the rule is that you can ghost, but only for very split seconds of time. And the reason they use it is to survive these hairpin turns without dying from the G force. And even what's kind of fun too is even the machines and the ships would be built around surviving G-force, because even they kind of almost would break at these kind of turns. So they might be a little part of it too. Like aspects of the ship need to get ghosted as well, something like that. Like you could get kind of a little fun with the nuances and ins and outs, but still not exactly a story. But you almost could make like a short story there. But then I'm like, the point where it becomes a story is the point where you get to repurpose that system. So the idea, then it's another kind of scene I've had in my head, but it would be the pilot, for whatever reason she's run afoul. Maybe it's like a classic gambling debt thing, like, so like she didn't throw the race and she was supposed to, so then the mob, they like do come to kill her, and maybe she doesn't expect it, I don't know. But so they just bust into her apartment, and they're going to kill her, but she ghosts and falls through the floor, and then so she gets away, but she can only ghost for 1 second, and then it used it. So then she can't ghost anymore after that for like a day or whatever. But she escaped. Like they were going to shoot her, she fell through the floor, and like people wouldn't see the use of the ghosting for that purpose, you know what I mean?
Right.
So
And I
that
can
becomes like the cool point. So sorry, what were you going to say?
right, and I can see like there could be another like point of there's like there's I can see another aspect to like with the ghosting if you're like because you only have that 1 second to uh that you're in between I guess like that you're like sort of out of body. I from what I
Yeah.
understand. So, like if you're like let's say that like the same idea of like if you're trying to go through the floor, I guess like that 1 second was enough time to go through, however many inches or whatnot that floor was. So like if you're trying to do the same thing through like a I don't know, something like a concrete floor or like a something that has a bit more um, like that the material that you're going through is significantly thicker that like however like and that also kind of brings into mind like how gravity would affect that ghosting too, because it's like
Yeah.
with with the ghost, like if you're falling through the floor, if you're if you're falling at like uh I forget what the speed that you accelerate when you're that you accelerate in gravity is exactly like, but like does that still apply to you when you're in that state or and whatnot, and then
Yeah.
like if you get stuck in the like and then yeah like if it like if that second runs out and then you're like essentially crushed in that material or whatever, like that's also a risk that people who have that ability would have to take.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. So we would figure that out. And as you were talking to, I'm like, well, shit, you actually could dodge bullets, but you could only dodge like 10 or something, and then you'd be out of using your ghosting. Um, and the timing would be actually the timing might be so precise that yeah, you could dodge like one, but it's not like yeah, you would literally be like guessing. So you can maybe dodge one if you're lucky, but you'd have to ghost for the whole second and time it right and stuff. Um, but uh, the other thing I was thinking is it could be cool if you get stuck in a material, you just blow up or it blows up or something like the new like you come back into being in that just like if it was concrete, the whole concrete would move back and it for that to happen it would crack, but then you would still be buried in rubble, so you would be dead. But this is only if this will work because then what I'm saying it would allow you to do is you actually could ghost your hand, or maybe you can only ghost maybe your whole body. But um, well, then yeah, it is. I have to double think about how gravity would work. Like you would just fall, then like what you just fall. So we'll figure that out. But we do have to figure that out. But you could ghost if you're like an assassin, you ghost, stick your hand into their heart chest cavity, and then de-ghost, and then their chest blows up, and you pull your hand out. Like that would be like pretty badass. Um, so the story, and this is like a classic story structure, and we do use this in Hotel Story, but it's where you introduce the magic system, and then you explore all the ways that the magic system can be utilized in ways that the audience doesn't see coming. And then the plot would actually almost serve that. So like, it is kind of fun if it's racing to have it be like a mob story with money and bets and assassinations. It's like yeah, that's cliche, but you can do your own version of it, and it can be really fun. So maybe something like that. Another plot point that I've kind of had in the past is that this kind of could fit with is an idea that there's a treaty kind of keeping the peace. It could be between the gangs or whatever, or like a smaller gang is sort of under the protection of a larger gang or whatever. And so it's some of this, I forget what the word is, but it's like politics almost. But so this girl, I'm picturing it as a girl, partly because I'm looking at Ada Wong, but the pilot would be a girl. Um, and she is under the protection of the larger force. And then what happens is because of a series of events or whatever, or even like a coup or like a little like just a little straight up assassination, that larger force is gone. So then there's nothing. There's no more treaty. The treaty's off. She's no longer protected, and then that could be the point where yeah, immediately there's like a cleanup, and people are killing off all the people that were under this person's protection, and so they bust into her apartment, but she ghosts and escapes. But then she's still screwed because like she only was able to fall one floor or whatever. But yeah, speaking of how gravity would work, one thing I was like, well, the ships could have an element. A part of the ship is like something that holds your ghosts in the ship. So there's like a force field almost type thing that will keep your ghost uh, what's a word like for like almost like cell the we could use cell terminology, but cells have like a membrane and shit like that. But so there would almost be like this membrane that keeps your ghost in it. And then if there's no membrane, it's like yeah, you would just uh, something would happen. But maybe you could, as a ghost, you can fly, but again, only for a second. And as a ghost, gravity doesn't affect you, but you would get left behind by the ship unless you tried to fly with it a little bit, but you can't match it. So they have the membrane keep it to match it. But then yeah, so she could ghost and just shoot down through the floor. But and then again, like there's how fast you can fly, but you could almost like teleport ish. Maybe not exactly teleport, but even that storytelling wise, it's kind of fun if it's almost almost as fast as teleporting, but it's a vector. So you do have to measure and be worried about how far you can get, and if it's yeah through concrete, if you get stuck, um, the consequences. And yeah, like what are the consequences if you get stuck in matter while ghosting? You come back into the world. Like even so, the idea of it, does it displace the thing that was there before? So then it kind of blows up. Actually, in Quake and Doom, they had to worry about that just because of game programming. So if you teleport somewhere and something else is occupying that space, it explodes, and they call it telefragging. So we that logic like feels kind of good, or it could be both. Like both explode, or maybe you explode because the other thing was there first. But it's kind of fun if you get there and then it like basically explodes the thing that you displace. But then that's almost OP the way the ghosting, like, because within the story it's like yeah, we want to explore the fun ways to utilize this magic system, but some of them would be like the world doesn't even use them these ways, was what I was thinking. Like the world uses it for racing, and then she randomly uses it to survive one assassination attempt, and that kind of gets the story going.
Hmm.
But if they're OP, like if you can literally explode things by sticking your hand into it, ghosting, sticking your hand in, then it's like yeah, they would be assassins, they would be terrorists, they would be like uh, whatever bounty hunters, et cetera, et cetera. So maybe not, maybe not OP, maybe that doesn't work. But then what does happen? Like it would be like yeah, actually, it is kind of fun if the stakes are pretty high. Like if you get stuck in something, and why nobody really does it except in the very safe, created section of the spaceships that are meant to do it, or the racing ships, is that whatever part of you that happens to um, explodes or something like that. Uh, Maybe. So then you could do something, but it would be more of a suicide bomb, and it wouldn't be that powerful because it would be blood and guts exploding everywhere.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you have any thoughts as we're brainstorming?
Um, nothing comes to mind.
Yeah, that one's like a little bit in uh, the early stages, and we kind of I keep I want to still pursue the skate idea with you, um, jet set radio idea. So this one's kind of back burner. But yeah, I got it just in the last few days. I guess I've got that on back burner and the AI ship thing on back burner, where I'm like both those could be kind of fun. I might try and get those. If I had a budget, I might throw one of them to Mike Murphy or something, have him just write it. But right now there isn't the budget for that. But that's again there might be in the next year or so,
Sure.
to keep things going. Romy, what about time dilation? Yeah, that's sweet. I don't know if ghosting messes with that or not, but it could. And that's another thing you could play with later in a different way down the line. Phasing, phase shift. How is she putting on with the holster clipped on? I think she's just pulling up. She's pulling up to look at her belly. She's not really putting it on. To answer your question, Norin says, I always wanted to write a one-off story based off Wave Race 64. That's kind of fun. That alone, like you could do it. It might be a real simple story. Like you're not breaking the bank with that one. Like it literally might be two guys racing to impress a girl or something, and then one guy wins, and then the end. But that would be fun, like if it's Wave Race. Fast and Cassie says, I'd be ghosting into bank vaults. Yeah, see, that's like, but I guess if we thought of rules, like maybe there'd be something like, it's just literally about 1 second for ghosting. So you can get one way, but getting out is harder. Someone tried it, they got stuck in. But maybe they do. Maybe there's a few that were thieves. Sometimes when that happens too, it's like there would be an organization to police the abusing of that power system. So there would be like an honor system, like, hey, don't use this to rob banks. If you do, we have a specialized team that will come after you. Actually, that could sort of be a little bit of the plot, even well, then it gets away from the racing thing. But yeah, 9.8 meters per second squared. Limit break. Ghost grenades. Introducing powers, then using them in cool ways is similar to JoJo's and Fist of the North Star. Very fun storytelling. Yeah. Hey, Manto, what's up, by the way? Manto is in the chat. Seriously ugly. Him, and Jared have collabed on. We collabed on Robozan, and we might get something in the pipeline sooner or later. That Batman Beyond ep. I don't know which one you're talking about. Redline was good, but it could have been fleshed out more. Yeah, that one was fun. Help me, I'm freezing the dryer. There was a lot of comments. Thanks everyone for participating. Why has there not been a new Jet Moto? Yeah, see? Maybe some Jet Moto fan art. Some of the things, they strike that chord where you're like, oh, it's like it fell down the memory hole, but it's due to come back. You know what I feel like did that in the last year or maybe two, but maybe it didn't. But I feel like that happened to American Psycho. Like how many years did American Psycho pass where people weren't talking about it? And then it became the most memed movie ever almost. And that happened, I feel like, just in the last couple of years. Good evening. 1 second is plenty to go in and out through one wall. You need to run fast toward the wall and precision time the ghosting. Yeah. There could be a rule like you can't backtrack, but that's like a little like convenient for the storyteller. Like, why couldn't you? But if you couldn't backtrack, that's like a sort of a limit on the power. But Hydro Thunder, I remember first time seeing that arcade and it was 60 frames per second. And that's the first time I had seen 60 frames per second and it blew my mind. I was like, what is it? It's so smooth. What is it? Oh, nice, Sid. Oh, you're doing a little different drawing style here.
Yeah, yep.
Looks cool though. All right, I'm going to try and wrap up my drawing. Oh, I know what I was going to do. I was going to get the umbrella logo and put it on the box here. See if I can do that. Umbrella Resident Evil logo. You copy. Edit. I am just cheating a little bit. I'm not gonna draw it. I'm just gonna. For looks correctamundo. What else can we do? Pertinent. Can go multiply. It's too much. And then I can maybe mask out. That's maybe not the best way to do it. It'll all do. What the flip? Hold on. Like that. I don't even know what. Yeah, like that. Christopher McGee, what's up? How's it going? 16 people watching. We're just hanging out. We're almost 2 hours stream. I only got one drawing. I'll try and do one more. So I might keep streaming. If you, for any reason, have to go, Jared, feel free. But yeah, I'm gonna try and do one more like fan art kind of thing.
Sure. I'll see if I can finish this drawing at least. I'm kind of having a fight with the hand holding the cigarette. So yeah, I'll see.
Yeah. That looks good when I look at that. My first look at it. But yeah.
Right. I mean, it is just. I mean, like that's what the rough is right now.
Oh, gotcha. I mean, the gesture. That's my thing though, and people do give me crap because I'm like, as long as the gesture reads correctly, I don't care about hands. And people are like, Narwhal sucks at drawing hands. I'm like, well, yeah, if you zoom in on it, it's like I can draw hands though. Even in this case, like that was really hard to draw the anatomy, so I ended up just turning it into mitts, kind of, getting the grip.
Right.
For mine or whatever. Cool. I'm gonna get a little more coffee. Chat. What I should do? One by chat request. So think about stuff that we could crowdfund or that we could do fan art of that could help expand into new horizons slightly. Be it that has kind of like a fan base or something. Travis Adams. I had a moment today. I always thought Ada as a cool character, but this morning it hit me during the DLC. I'm in. Resident Evil has some real awesome hotties with well-developed personalities. Yeah. That's a good point. It's fun. The characters, people do end up like getting attached to them, and all they do is survive. So they're not like insanely well-written characters, other than that they're around and you do grow. They grow on you more and more as they have more and more stuff to do as they survive longer and longer. Delay, do a Steamboat Willie Mickey Mouse and publish it January 1st, 2024. Actually, that's not a bad idea. Simply Green says Dune. Richard Lasura says, at least Narwhal makes better hands than AI. Killer Reynolds says, start a poll. Cool. Well, I'm going to get more coffee and I'll be right back.
God damn it. All right.
Mentalicious says, no pressure, Jared. Everyone is watching you draw a hand holding a cig. It's like, I feel like that is one of the hardest things to draw. Is that a Newport or a Marlboro?
It's Swisher Sweet.
Nice. Sid smokes Swishers. He's like, we got to stop at a gas station. Got to get me a Swisher. whale she. Um, I'm trying to think of any fan art. I like another one I like is Regina from Dino Crisis, but she's like Ada Wong, kind of very kind of similar, except redheaded. Um, I kind of like Tomb Raider. Okay, oh, maybe maybe Spike from Cowboy Bebop. Maybe Mario. I was thinking Spike versus Mario, but that might be too much to chew off right now.
Do you mean like Wrecking Crew Spike, or like is there a different Spike?
I'm thinking of Cowboy Bebop.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And then there's Spike McFang. You ever heard of him?
Uh, I feel like I've heard the name, but I can't put an image to it.
It's a Super Nintendo game, and he looks like I don't know, like what like Super Nintendo anime version, like Bomberman. He looks kind of like Bomberman, but he's wearing a top hat and a big cloak. Zed Spike McFang was a great game. Yeah, I've dabbled in playing that one like a month ago. I'd like so rarely play. It'd be kind of fun to play on the channel, but that's a little bit all over the place too. Um, but that's my only. I, my PS3. I don't have a TV right now. I have a monitor with a crappy old uh, Raspberry Pi that will run on the TV on the monitor, and it's only fast enough to play Super Nintendo emulators. And I could do it on this computer, but I kind of like doing it on a separate station. I can sit in a semi more comfortable chair, and I have the controller that plugs in, and it's like a Super Nintendo controller, and it works with the emulator. So I can only play Super Nintendo, regular Nintendo, and like Sega, but I'm not as much into Sega for some reason. But I was playing a little Spike McFang. There's another one. There's one called Robo Trek. It's like a RPG where you build your own robot, like almost like Pokemon, but you build them and I think fight them or something. Nice. Sid being very pensive. He's exhaling and thinking. It's like they asked him for a ride, and he's like, I'm just going to let you guys sweat a little while I finish this smoke. I could try and draw a loop in the third. Spike, Valentine. What if you draw Spike? I don't know. Maybe I will try and sketch a little Spike versus Mario. That's weird. I searched. Is his name? Did I get his name wrong? Is it not Spike Valentine? I swear.
Spike Spiegel.
Oh, Spike Spiegel. Spike Valentine. Mm-mm. Zed says play Lufia 2. Yeah, I remember that one. It has great puzzles, but I never played it all the way through. I might have played just a little bit back in the day. My buddy was into it though. Another one that I'm a fan of is some GameCube stuff like Killer 7. Have you ever heard of that one, Jared?
I've heard of it. It's something that I want to try and play at some point, but I I mean I haven't like I know I don't really have the time. Like I should just like watch a playthrough of it at least. Um, because like yeah, I mean I've told you a little bit that I played some I played like through like the first two of the no more heroes games.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. It's that creator. I forget his name, but he's famous badass. But yeah, it's cool. It has really cool graphics.
Yeah,
But that's another one. It's so niche. You draw it, people would be like, "What?" But then
I
maybe the
feel like
niche is a good strat.
I feel like like it might be niche, but I feel like there's a sizable enough audience that people there's definitely people that would recognize it like more than like something like Sin and Punishment or uh, I can't think of another good example, but especially like just like Suda 51, like because like
Yeah.
people like if people are a fan of like No More Heroes and whatnot, they I'm sure they'll definitely have looked into the like into his past works too.
Um. What about God Hand? You ever heard of that game?
Yeah, yeah, I've heard of God Hand.
That's from the guy who made Resident Evil. Oh, and Resident Evil was initially inspired by a regular Nintendo game that has since been translated, but it only came out in Japan. It's called Sweet Home. I might actually play that game, like for real. That and Spike McFang, Robotrek, Lufia 2. I got a little list, but the one I did play the last couple games, maybe I was into Quake and I actually played it, but something happened where like I got almost to beat it and then like lost my save. So that always like I don't know if I switched computers or something, but I switched to like a different version of Quake. I forget, but somehow I lost my save and it was bull crap.
Yeah.
Um, but the one I played quite a bit is called Tactics Ogre. I'm sure fair amount of people in the chat. It's the predecessor to Final Fantasy Tactics. It's a lot. It's almost identical in a lot of ways, like same graphics, same point of view. But it's so fun. But it's a little slower paced because it's just the strategy turn based kind of thing. But um, and I might have told you there's a game called Torino's Dungeon where the guy who did the art, it's Akira Toriyama, the guy who did Dragon Ball.
Hmm.
So the art's amazing, and it's kind of like Diablo, but it's turn based. But it's like you're just going into the dungeon, seeing how deep you can get, and seeing how much loot you can get, and
Yeah,
it's
I think
so.
because I think like is that like that's like a spin-off of the Dragon Quest series, isn't it? Because like there's like a merchant, like there's like a character from one of those games that got like that's like super popular, and they did a game based off of him.
Yes, that is true. I think it is a spinoff. Um, and yeah, that game looks awesome, and I want to play it. So I've been thinking about if I'm gonna. I don't know. I told you too. This is a random thing to discuss, but I people ask me sometimes like, "Do you got any hobbies?" And I'm like, it's hard to have an answer. And I'm like, maybe you can count lately, just the last 2 months, you can count working out. But I don't even do that too much. I do that like 3 times a week. In the morning, I'll go to the gym. But then, and then lately too, just in the last week or maybe 2 weeks, I've been getting into spiders. Did I tell you anything about that, Jared? Have we talked since I?
I don't think you've told me specifically. I think I've caught like a couple streams where you've mentioned the whole spider stuff.
Okay, so or you're up to speed.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I'm into spiders still. That's still kind of happening. So that's my answer these days. If people ask, I'm like, I like spiders. Um, but yeah, if I take a little time, like I almost do have time. Like now, if I want to, one thing I want to do is watch some tutorials for some like game maker studio, some kind of game making like Unity or Unreal or uh, the one I'm actually kind of interested in is Godot because that's open source and like a little possibly a little more beginner style.
Hmm.
Um, and so I do want to do that, but that again, it almost counts as work. But and I have dabbled, but because I do want to try and make a video game sooner or later. I have an idea. There's a couple different ideas you could do, but for a game, but they'd have to be pretty darn simple, I think, especially for a first game or whatever, and not getting stuck in. And it might be like so simple that it's like the equivalent of what a pro would make in a weekend for a weekend game jam, but it'd still be like fun enough, good enough that it could be like a bonus on a campaign or something. But there's one I kind of want to do where it'd be like almost like the Infinite Runner type game, where like there's versions of that where like Flappy Bird is one, but there's versions where you decide to either jump or slide. You're like a guy running on a rooftop, and it's like jump, slide, 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 jump, and obviously that gets boring eventually, but it's surprisingly fun for what it is, you know.
Yeah.
And I just want to make one of those. But I though even already the idea I have is like more complicated. But the idea I have is you'd be in a ship, and you can it's these like pillars that you're slipping through, and you can dodge the pillars by doing a barrel roll. So you have to time the barrel roll correctly, and then you're on two kind of rails. So you just select the right rail and time the barrel roll, and that's basically it. But then beyond that is once in a while you could do a boost, and then boosting will let you like break through a wall, but you can only do that once in a while by like collecting power ups. And I think those three things is like all it is. And then maybe, but this already it gets again like kind of too crazy. But if there was an element where you actually are like building the train tracks while you're on the train, so you have to collect on the rails, you have to collect pieces, and then it moves to the front, and you can make decisions of what to collect, and you can build combos that way. So you can collect three of open rail, then you know you have open space for a while, then you can boost without crashing. So like something like that could be like fun gameplay. Like I don't know if this counts as gameplay loop, but I'm not as quite as good as like game designers use that term. But the one I'm okay at thinking about is like what feels like really good and satisfying. And what's funny is when they were making Diablo 1, they made the fighting real time. They went through a lot of development with it being turn based, like Torino's Dungeon or whatever. But they made it real time, and then the guy spent all weekend switching it to be a real time fighting, and he made it so that you could click on an enemy and you walk up to them and attack them. And so that's all it is. So he after a weekend straight of 48 hours of programming, he got to test it. So he put a skeleton in the room, and then his guy, and you click on the skeleton and your guy walks up to it and whacks it, and it thwack, and then the animation of it falling apart falls. And he
Hmm.
immediately knew that he had something there. He's like, that was fun. And literally all it is you're clicking on it, but you're clicking on it and it being real time, responding, everything about it, like because there is a little, the sound effects really good and the animations are good. All those things combined to make it like it's fun, and it's fun in a way that never gets old, pretty much. Diablo 1. And then there's other things, and it does have the gameplay loop of exploring and looting, and that's like a lot of the addictiveness, but then just that initial thing. But I know it would be fun to combo three open spaces and then boost, or to boost to smash through a wall or something would be like pretty fun. Bancroft's here. What's up, Bancroft? We're just drawing and hanging, doing some fan art to try and promote Hotel Story. Um, I wonder what we should do about if we. I think when we post it, maybe we will include the link, but sometimes it's better to not include the link. So like, yeah, we go like, if you like this, we have a comic live now. You can back it here. Might do that, but then it's like sometimes if you just post it and then people find out later, just trying to get people following and then tell them about the comic later. I can't decide. Maybe both. Maybe we'll try one. We'll try both at some point. We'll see which one works better. Travis Adams says, "Oh, and Travis he complimented Earthbound earlier. Let me read that. Goes, I read Earthbound this morning. Couldn't put it down. I'm ready for the next chapter in Grand Prix. Nice work. Congrats all around. Thanks, Travis. Are you talking about, did you read volume 1, 2, and Grand Prix, or just Grand Prix? And had you read 1 and 2 before, or did you just jump into Grand Prix? Because I'm curious about that too, people who just read Grand Prix. But thank you. That's awesome. And part 2, I'm done with I've got 24 pages drawn, and I've got the last 24 thumbnailed, and I'm really excited. It's going to be a really fun little 48-page comic. People are going to be stoked. Combines really well with part 1. Builds really nicely. Hey, Owen Benjamin. I mean, that's funny. I do look like him just a little bit. And I subscribe to many of his crazy, what does he call it? Gravy. But I've kind of fallen off since he's not on YouTube, I'm ashamed to admit. Dragon Quest was originally called Dragon Warrior. How's the Paperclip Factory? I beat it, so I'm kind of over it, but it's fun. Saw a female redback jumping spider the other day. A nice visit on a fall day. Real friendly, those jumping spiders. Yeah, I swear they're like smart in a way that, I don't know, like a dog or a cat or something. They're like legit. They look at you and they meet. The other thing is, there's even how smart they are aside, it's like decisions that they have to make. Like they kind of have to decide whether you're trying to kill them or not, and or whether or not you are food to them. And it makes both those decisions super fast and correct. Like it can size you up. I think it like looks at you and it like knows. It's like, oh, you're not trying to kill me. Then they'll hop on you and use you like a jungle gym kind of. Search for shady monetization mechanisms for games. They use psychology to tempt you into spending money. Yeah, I've heard of some of that, and it is unfortunate. Travis says, I read it all. Oh, dude, sweet. You read it all in one go. That's badass. Thanks, Ming. And yeah, I'm super excited for Grand Prix Part 2. It's going to be sweet. Yeah, it's fun. We were talking a little bit about sci-fi. There's like a sub-genre of sci-fi of like, how crazy an idea can you invent and then implement into the story and relate to the audience in a way that doesn't confuse them? And you can bite off, more than you can chew. It's like, how ambitious can you be with that? Like Philip K. Dick is like famous for that. And it'll get kind of trippy, and he'll have some crazy concepts going on in his books, and they're a lot of fun. And that was an inspiration when I started Earthbound. I used to love Philip K. Dick, and I ingested all his stuff, read almost all his books. But it's funny, that was like my early 20s, and now I'm kind of over it. I tried to reread one like a couple years ago, and I wasn't as into it. So it is funny, like the stages of your life, you'll be into different stuff, and you can kind of digest it and move on a little bit. But I do love Philip K. Dick. But anyway, Grand Prix is a little bit like that. It's like definitely throwing its hat in the ring for some crazy sci-fi concepts. And I think that would be fun about possibly this the phasing, racing, ghosting thing is kind of like that too. Because yeah, you can like there are a lot of stories where you've heard a version of it a million times before. And well, even with the phasing one, like a racing story mob, you're supposed to throw the race, but you didn't. That's a million times before you've heard. But throwing the phasing into it does kind of make it a little bit something you haven't heard, and having it pivot to be more of a survival story after that. I'm not too into this spike that I drew here. Let me throw it on Jared for a second while I. Sweet. That pose is dope. He's got his hand in his pocket.
Yeah.
And his hand ended up looking sweet. And it does look like a swisher. That's hilarious. That on another layer, if you feel like messing with it, you should mess with some hatching, like not even cross hatching, but even like parallel line hatching for some shading and just see how it looks, because that could look
Sure.
cool with that
Sure.
style. I am just going to power through on my spike drawing and see if I can't.
Why am I drawing?
Spike Spieg and Mario. This one's way more sketchy. shit. No. That might be good enough for now. Save as. Nice. That's looking cool. Oh, look at that. That's dope.
Thank you.
It's kind of classy. It's like Sid. That's what Sid deserves. Sid deserves the special treatment.
Right.
Passing casi noise. Yeah, probably wrap up the stream here in a little bit. Trying to think if there's anything else. We got one backer while we've been drawing. So thanks. I bet that was someone in the chat. Thanks to whoever it was. Very stoked. And we'll keep on trucking, keep it going. And yeah, back hotel story, everyone. And yeah, I don't know, Jared. Any closing thoughts?
Not really. I'm happy. I'm happy that people are taking a look at it and are excited to see it. Hotel story.
Me too. Yeah, well said. And we probably we'll stream again maybe in a week, and maybe more of that, just this drawing some fan art stuff. You know what we might do too? We might do us drawing some hotel story characters and just doing some fun of our own character, like Salome, but even like Gary and some of the others. When you guys starting your kick streams? Like what's kick? I'm not sure. When's the eBay store open? Soon-ish, like a week or two max, maybe sooner. Thanks for the interest, though, Quiltine. Stoked? Yes. Cool. All right, so yeah, we'll post these and we'll be in touch, whatever, with the chat. We'll catch you guys later. I'm gonna hit the button. So, bye bye.